Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hawks back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right with Calder Cup, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Barrett. Fighting scores! Off the face-off! Up in Zimminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They score! Scores! They score! Now they catch each other and they both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Farrell will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from the mile-high city of champions, Denver, Colorado.
And Innisfil, Ontario.
Oh, welcome to the Calder Farmstead Podcast, episode number 107 for Thursday, June 30th, 2022. If you were hoping for a podcast featuring a guide to alfalfa water requirements, we are not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast, and my name is CC Hockley, the AHL editor of Full Press Hockey.
And I'm Sean O'Brien from StatsTrack and the AHL's only league-wide analytics guy.
And as always, we thank you for tuning in with us.
And if you're new to hearing Cece and I talk about hockey, well, we've been here a long time. I don't know how you didn't hear about us, but, we're going to recap some of the AHL news as well as the Calder Cup Finals. We both watch a lot of AHL games and are talk about what we see when we watch the film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new to you, you may want to head over to our YouTube feed or podcast channel, wherever you're listening to us from. Scroll all the way to the bottom down there and check out episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms like PDO or the point shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out, so you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes, and let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes watching Jersey Shore Family Vacation. The very fact that that show even exists proves we are in the dumbest timeline. You'll never get that time back, so next time, why not spend a little more time with us, talking hockey?
I usually have a comment to make about that, but I have no comment to make about that. So let's get right to it. Let's talk about some head coaching, well, not really changes, a couple of, not surprising hires in the AHL. One of them was, it was a midseason elevation. Colin Chalk from the Bakersfield Condors, an assistant coach coming into this season, elevated to interim head coach when Jay Woodcroft took over as the Edmonton Oilers head coach. And of course, as he signed a head coaching contract with Edmonton, so the dominoes fall. Chalk named officially the head coach of the Bakersfield Condors.
I mean, not really a surprise here. Coached the Condors to a solid regular season record, won a playoff round. Is he the most qualified coach the Condors could have hired that was available on the market? No, he was not. But he's a known entity. He did a pretty good job as the interim this season. His resume is good enough to not be disqualifying at that point, especially since, again, he has a head start on every candidate they could hire. He already did the job and did a pretty good job with it. If I'm a Condors fan, I'm not jumping up and down here, but I'm not upset. I'm whelmed, but probably because if you're a Condors fan, you pretty much knew that this was going to happen, mostly because firing an interim coach that did a good job requires you to be like Florida levels of stupid. Bakersfield isn't even in Florida, so they're safe here.
All right. That was the first one. Now the second one, and I tell you, I always mess this up in my head. I always switch the L and the Y in his last name. But after serving as an assistant coach over with the Charlotte Checkers this season, kind of appointed there, well, not kind of, he was appointed there by the Seattle Kraken since their prospects were playing out of Charlotte last season. Dan Bylsma. Did I pronounce that right?
That's correct.
Okay. See, I switch it and I psych myself out, but he was officially named the head coach of the Coachella Valley Firebirds. This was kind of like, okay, yeah, you officially announced it. I mean, everyone was kind of like, oh, hey, it's big news. Not everyone, but it was kind of a foregone conclusion in my opinion.
Kind of like Colin Chalk. It's like, well, yeah. What else were you really not going to do that? I actually thought that he already was named the head coach and like that he was just in Charlotte, as the Firebirds head coach doing the assistant thing for Charlotte. Like
Same.
I thought we were already here. Apparently this wasn't always the plan. Regardless, like Dan Bylsma is an above average NHL coach, I would say. Yes, he did have bad years in Buffalo, but look at that roster and tell me he wasn't gifted a lot of problems. Regardless, he's a damn good AHL coach for sure. He's also like 92% chance to be Seattle Kraken's second ever head coach when they realized that Dave Hackstall learned absolutely nothing from the failings he had as the Flyers head coach. But for the time being, this was the obvious, like what else were they going to do? I really don't know why this was even like a news item. I mean, I guess he didn't get like a press conference or whatever introducing him as the coach, and you kind of have to do that. So that's why we have this announcement now, but I feel like we were always going to be here. But regardless, for as long as he's in the AHL with the Firebirds, I expect success for the Firebirds from under him. He's a Stanley Cup winning coach, has a Jack Adams Award. Like he's won multiple playoff rounds in the NHL. He, did the best he could with terrible Buffalo teams. I think this is probably the best guy they could have found for this job. I again, still thought that this was always what was going to happen. I was kind of surprised to see it being announced, but I guess technically it wasn't. So here we are.
I got one more coaching thing from the Pacific Division. I mean, there's been enough news already this offseason. What do you think about Eagles head coach Greg Cronin being floated out there for the Boston Bruins head coaching job?
I will say, I think the only person I've seen float Cronin's name for the Bruins head coaching job is you.
However, it's on Twitter. Don't.
I'm not saying it's not true. I'm not saying you're not doing reporting. I'm also saying I haven't been following it that closely. But every time I hear Bruins candidates, it's like David Quinn, Jay Leach, and who's the other guy? I can't remember. But like it's usually the two of them. And like a third guy that keeps popping up who I don't remember off the top of my head. But like I've not heard a lot of Cronin. I mean, he coached Northeastern?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's, has city roots, which apparently counts for something. I don't know why. But like I'm not a huge Greg Cronin fan, but he did do a very good job with the Eagles this year. That team was very fun to watch. If I were him, I would not want to take this Boston job, but I also, realize it's a giant pay raise and NHL head coaching jobs don't just grow on trees. But like, I would not be wanting this Bruins job because I think the Bruins are about to. So I wouldn't want to be responsible for that.
And he won't be. I stand corrected. An Athletic article that was published 2 hours ago. Now I'm the one getting scooped here, but it's official. Greg Cronin is out of the running for Boston Bruins head coach. Yeah, he was, a source close to the Arlington native said. So, yeah.
So he told them.
I guess so.
Anyway.
I mean, I can't get much closer than that. So,
well, I mean, if you're getting interviews as an NHL head coach, you want that leaked out there. So, yeah, it wouldn't shock me if he was the one leaking his name. Like, yeah, I interviewed, buddy. I interviewed. Like,
but now out of the running. But
that is, that's the smart career move. Is if you're going to interview for a job that like is above your current pay grade, you always leak that information.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Anyway,
for sure. Alrighty, with the coaching news behind us, we're going to get to the last set of AHL games for the 21-22 season and the 2022 Calder Cup playoffs. So here we go. Chicago and Springfield in the Calder Cup Finals, and it's finished. Game 1, Springfield coming back, seizing the victory from Chicago, 5-4 in overtime, and that would be the only game that the Thunderbirds would win. June 20th, Monday, Chicago 6, Springfield 2. June 22nd, Wednesday, Chicago 4, Springfield 0. Friday, June 24th, Chicago 4, Springfield 2. And Saturday, June 25th, finishing it off in shutout fashion. Once again, 4-0, Game 5. the clincher for the Chicago Wolves. They are your 2022 Calder Cup champions. I picked the Wolves in 7. Sean, I think you picked the Wolves in 6, if I'm not mistaken.
I said at least 6 games. So
that's right. Yeah.
The model also took the Wolves here, but as a very tiny favorite, which I think we were all surprised by. But just further evidence, I do not put my thumb on the scale with the model. My only goal is accuracy.
Correct.
But as you've noticed, I've also changed jerseys here to represent Springfield for 2 reasons. Number one, we're going to do our postmortem here, and it felt kind of weird to be doing it dressed in the jersey of the team that killed you. Also, I've been wearing the Chicago jersey a lot because, they've been winning and blah, blah, blah. But, I like the Springfield jersey. I think I've only got to wear it once on the show this year. So, it's a nice looking thing. So figured we'd mix it in here, as we, lay Springfield to rest here in the postseason.
Anytime that a franchise decides to get one of their primary colors as their colored jersey, I love it. It's such a good, the Eagles, Colorado Eagles going with kind of that Colorado sky blue as they called it, and that Springfield jersey. Yeah, rolling of the eyes, big eye roll from Sean there. But I digress. We're going to talk Springfield, RIP to the Thunderbirds. Sean, again, that first game, Springfield down 4-2. They come back, score a goal. They get another goal, push it to overtime. They win it in overtime. And I'm thinking, okay, this 6-7 game prediction could be, hold on to your butts. This could come true. And then, of course, Chicago shutting out the Thunderbirds in 2 of the last 4 games and getting victories in very convincing fashion. And they end it in 5 after I don't know if this will qualify as a gentleman's sweep for them to get 1 game and then
yeah, that's the gentleman's sweep.
That is the gentleman's sweep. Okay,
that is the gentleman's sweep.
I have not heard that term until recently. Go ahead.
I mean, I'll be completely honest. Even though I picked Chicago to win, I was rooting for Springfield in Game 5 just because I do not like watching teams win championships on the road. It's so incredibly I will never forget when the Blackhawks beat the Flyers. And Patrick Kane is the first for 2 minutes. Patrick Kane's the only one who's that puck win in the net, and it's watching a building of 20,000 people, and 20 of them are celebrating. It's just so incredibly awkward, and I don't like that for a championship celebration. But let's talk about what happened here. In our preview, we said that the Thunderbirds are going to need to win the series if they do 3 things. Number 1 was keep Chicago contained in the neutral zone. Number 2 was take advantage of power play opportunities that they were given. And number 3 was all hands on deck. So we'll go through those one by one here. Keep Chicago contained in the neutral zone. I don't think they did a terrible job here for Springfield, but they didn't do a great job. Let's say that. They at least forced the Wolves to play dump and chase a fair bit. They were able to stand up in the blue line, put some pressure on them to the neutral zone, but the Wolves definitely had moments where they broke through. And we always knew that was going to happen. It was mostly trying to keep those to a minimum. I don't think they kept them to a minimum, but they definitely didn't let the Wolves just run wild with it in terms of neutral zone play. I thought they did at least a B-, C+ kind of job. Probably not good enough to get the job done, but definitely not the reason they lost. The reason they lost is pretty much the second point. To take advantage of the power play opportunities that they were given, and my God, were they given opportunities. 9.7% in the series in net power play percentage. And the exact same thing I feel like we talked about in the conference finals plagued them again. The T-Birds relied way too much on a power play strategy of shots with distance from traffic, with traffic in front. Laval took those opportunities away with disciplined structure and guys staying in their lanes, and Chicago did the same thing, but also did a great job of breaking up zone entries too. The T-Birds very much needed a more dynamic approach to pulling those penalty killers out of the structure and better puck movement to exploit those breakdowns. And they really did neither of those things, and the adjustments they did make weren't very effective, nor were they really all that spectacular to begin with. And I think that's a big coaching error on the T-Birds in my mind. For 2 rounds, they got absolutely smoked on the power play, and they never tried making adjustments to their power play approach. They moved guys into different spots. They changed up the personnel, but largely they kept the structure and execution the same. You went 1 for 29 in the Laval series, and in the 4 days between the two series, didn't think it was time for a different approach. I think that's on assistant coach Daniel Tkachuk for not doing more there. Like, I don't know. That is the one thing that I can point to in the Calder Cup Finals where it's like I think that's a coaching letdown in that one very specific area. I think they needed to do more to make adjustments, and they didn't. And that very much was the big key in sinking the ship for the T-Birds, I think.
You know, and when we had Ryan Smith on the show to kind of preview this finals, you know, we talked about that identity line as they had been dubbed. You know, Will Bitt and Dakota Joshua and thank you, McEachern. Double Mac. Those three guys, obviously the top line there for Springfield, but, you know, they needed to get help. Any good team in the postseason, in the finals, is going to need depth. If the NHL Stanley Cup final didn't prove anything, you know, it was that you're going to need depth and you're going to need as healthy of bodies as you can out there. But pivoting back to Springfield, did the Thunderbirds get a lot of help from their depth? I mean, it didn't feel like it.
No, we said our third point was all hands on deck here. This was going to be, if Springfield was going to win the Calder Cup, they were going to need more than the identity line to carry them. And they did not get that in the series. Sam Annis, 1 primary point in the series. Hugh McGing, 1 primary point in the series. Nikita Alexandrov, 0 primary points in the series. Nathan Todd, 0 primary points in the series. Klim Kostin, 1 primary point in the series. Keen Washbrook and his, kind of counterpart that balanced him in the lineup when they came in, Tanner Kaspick, combined for 0 primary points in the series. These were guys the T-Birds needed to find ways to get on the score sheet more often, and they just didn't. Chicago absolutely played an inspired defensive game. They got great goaltending, but 6 of your bottom 9 forwards combined for 3 primary points in the entire 5-game series is not going to get the job done ever. Like, you needed those guys to step up and find a way, or you needed to scheme them better so that they were getting more opportunities, and that just didn't happen. And a little bit of that is on the staff coaching, a little bit of that is on the players themselves and execution and making plays in the moment, but like, you needed more to happen there. One last thing I kind of want to point out about this series that is going to be a great what if from this season as a whole is how different of a series do you think this is if the St. Louis Blues papered down the Scott Perunovich pain tour at the deadline and then sent them down when they got bounced by the Avs?
I mean, like, day and night, I think.
I absolutely think if Scott Perunovich is on this roster, I might have picked Springfield to win. I think the model would have too. But it's one of those two, especially when you look at what went wrong for Springfield. Power play, creating offense. Those are the calling cards of Scott Perunovich at the AHL level. He was a power play quarterback, guru, and could make offense in the offensive zone 5-on-5 too. Like, that was what he was amazing at. That was why he was the Scott Perunovich pain tour TM. Like, it's what his calling card was. And I think it's hard to look at that and not think that St. Louis may have cost Springfield a Calder Cup by not doing it. And they didn't do it for reasons. Like, he's not waiver eligible. Like, I understand why they didn't send Nathan Walker back. He has another year on his contract and would have to go through waivers, and someone might claim him. That makes sense to why you didn't paper him back down or send him back down. Scott Perunovich did not. He is waiver exempt. You could have papered him down for nothing and then sent him back down. And again, you played him like 9 minutes a game in the playoffs. So, like, the idea that you wanted him to get more ice time at a lower level for someone who is still young and a prospect, I don't get it. But, like, here we are. That's going to be, I think, something that if T-Birds fans weren't thinking about, sorry, that's now going to keep you up at night, guys.
It really reminds me of, the Western Conference equivalent to this. Vegas not papering down Logan Thompson in net. I mean, it's a head scratcher. Like, why did Logan Thompson not start for Henderson in their series against the Colorado Eagles? I think that series may have been a lot tighter. Even, it wouldn't have been, 2 games. It could have been very well 3. But I mean, we don't know the inner machinations of what goes on, but on the surface, it's truly a head scratcher. Like, why would you not paper down Perunovic? You paper down, Cal Rosen, right? I mean, he suited up for the T-Birds, so why not Perunovic as well? It's just, it baffles me, unless the organization's like, well, we don't want him playing in the AHL because he's going to be, he's going to be up with the Blues. But I mean,
they were playing him like 9, 10, 12 minutes a night.
Yeah,
You can't tell me he was so valuable to the Blues and play him 12 minutes. No, that's not how playing time works. Like, I understand why you kept him in the NHL, because he's one of your 6 best defensemen in the league, and you put your best roster out there every night, or at least, you do when you're not Montreal, Arizona, going for the General Patton approach to the season. But like, I don't get that. Like, especially too, he's young. He wasn't playing. Like, I don't think he was hurt. So what are we doing? Why? What was I don't know. It doesn't make sense. And I think, I'm not saying it directly, like, he's definitely not if they have him on the team, they 100% win the Calder Cup. Like, that's not the case, but like, it very much shifts the odds. Like, this would have been the conversation about this entire series is absolutely different if Scott Perunovic is on this roster, without question. He's the best player in the series.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%, but he wasn't. And, in spite of that kind of transitions well into our next point. Normally in the playoff series, when we do a postmortem, we kind of break down, was this season a success for this franchise or not? And even with the egregious sin of not papering down Perunovic, I mean, this is a huge success for the Springfield Thunderbirds, especially since it was their first playoff appearance since they, were granted this Thunderbirds franchise 5 or 6 seasons ago.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why people feel like it sucks making the finals and losing. It does. It sucks. It's probably the worst pain you can feel as an athlete or as a fan, being that close to, sports immortality and failing. And that's why it always surprises me to see people buy conference championship shirts and hats and such. Like, 2 things are going to happen here. Your team's either going to win a league championship, in which case you're going to want that merchandise, or your team's going to lose in the championship game, in which case you will have a shirt that reminds you that your team lost in the championship game, or a hat that reminds you. And yeah, is that a hugely cynical way to view it? Yep, it is. Hi, Sean O'Brien. Nice to...
Do you know this guy?
Yeah.
Have you met him?
That's me. I'm hugely cynical. But regardless, the pain of that loss will fade, and people will have positive memories of this season to take away from them, as long as they don't have Eastern Conference champions shirt to look at in their dresser drawer. But I think, anytime a team goes on a run like that, it brings new people to the game. It spurs new fans. It increases, local awareness. The local news must now cover you. It's, it's kind of a big deal. And that's always positive for the team. And while the ending sucks here for Springfield, as it did for Chicago, the last time we got to do this, or Texas the time before, or, on and on and on, the ride there was a hell of a good time. And it seems like even most of their fans before the Calder Cup Finals even started, acknowledged that they're like, I hope we win. I really hope we do. But this was the best season I've ever had watching hockey, and no outcome in the finals will change that. And most of their fans seem to be on board with that kind of line of thinking, and I imagine the rest will too eventually. After they wake up from what I assume has just been binge drinking in Springfield. But it sucks, but this was, the ending sucks, but the ride was fun, and we had a pretty good time, with it as well. Springfield definitely the source of a couple of fun memes for us. Springfield Wolverine with Scott Perunovic was one of my favorites. But yeah. We had a good time with Springfield this year. I actually, this jersey design, when I first got it, I thought I would hate it. It's grown on me. I actually kind of like it. I am really surprised though, because it seems like the base color is red, but it seems like everything else about Springfield is blue, is the blue tones.
Oh yeah.
So like, it's surprising that the jersey is red if you didn't know what the jersey looked like and you just saw the logo and the coloring and everything, right? Like, am I alone in thinking that?
No, I would think that they would try and embrace, the blue tones a little more. And I mean, it's not a nod to their history or anything. If you want to go back to the Falcons, they deployed, I don't know if they deployed a red jersey. I can't think of that off the top of my head, but they did have that in their color scheme. And obviously the Indians didn't, it was just green and blue. So, but yeah, I mean, it's grown on you. It's not the Tuma. So, I mean, half of this podcast is me trying to get Sean to crack, but I digress.
I think one thing that would be interesting for me for Springfield next year is, and I've always thought this would be a fun concept for a minor league team to do, is if they have the red jersey and they have a blue jersey as an alternate. And basically, like when they host, weekend home games, Fridays are reds, Saturdays are blues. And that's just how it is. I think that would be a fun thing for a team to try, or whatever their color scheme is. They have two main colors. They have jerseys that are, a red jersey, a blue jersey, if they're, green and gold or whatever. Like having one night, Friday nights are one color, Saturday nights are another color. If we have Sunday games too, that's we have another jersey. We'll wear the whites that day. All right. And that way, your fan base knows what jersey you got going for that day. And if they want to, deck out the arena in that color for that day, I think that would be fun. I think that would be a red Friday, blue Saturday, white Sunday. I think that would be a fun, organizational effort. But no team has ever done it. But
I think that'd be a great rallying cry for the Thunderdome. Like I really think that would be it's very creative. And before we move on, I did want to say, in all seriousness, I can be serious on this podcast occasionally, but I know, right? Big shocker. Springfield, Massachusetts is the headquarters of the AHL. And although I don't know if it's a direct benefit, because I'm sure not a lot of people know that, but to have your home base team, the Springfield Thunderbirds, do so well out of the COVID-19 pandemic, and for the city of Springfield, Massachusetts, to rally around the team as much as they did, and for that their arena, I think the Mass Mutual is the official sponsor of the arena, but it's the Thunderdome. It is the Thunderdome to the fan base, and so for your league to be headquartered in this city, and for the home base team to do so well, I mean, I thought it was kind of a neat coincidence that the Thunderbirds did well. League's trying to come back out of a very crazy COVID year, and Calder Cup hadn't been awarded it since 2019, and it gets awarded on the ice where your league headquarters is at. I mean, it was kind of.
Scott Housen has the easiest trip to go award the Calder Cup. He just crosses the street or whatever. Like he doesn't have to get an Uber. He can just walk to the arena.
Exactly.
I think the other thing too is this is a huge season for Springfield. As they didn't play last year in the COVID pandemic.
Right.
They switched affiliations to one that was just as remote. Not a lot of Florida Panthers fans in the middle of Massachusetts. Probably not a lot of St. Louis Blues fans, although there probably are a couple now at least, maybe.
Sure.
But that's a big shift. You're coming in with a roster full of guys that, your fans are not familiar with, off a season where you didn't play the season prior. And you're, reintroducing basically the team to the market, and to come in and have just that good of a season, to, finish second in the division by tiebreakers, to, pretty much have a cakewalk to the conference final, to win the conference final in dramatic fashion, to go to the Calder Cup Finals, all of the things that come with that. I think that's this was a very big banner year for Springfield, and I think that they're going to be able to build off of it pretty easily, and I hope that they do. I want every team to have a full fan base full of just raging fans with their own cheers and their own, fan culture to them. And I think Springfield's at least starting to find that identity a little bit, especially now as they're, attracting more fans with this run.
And I will say the fan engagement during this series for us, for our podcast personally, it was surprising. Like, coming out of the woodwork a little bit. And I will say that opinion article that I wrote about AHL realignment, I got a lot of guff from that. I got a lot of people saying, wow, this is stupid. But when you get thousands of views, I count that as a win.
I will say, the one thing that I thought was at least a little funny about some of the reactions to it is like, people are like, yeah, we really wish we could see different teams come in. They're like, you're moving us to a division with different teams. Like,
it's like, okay, just because I divided it up a little differently doesn't mean that, if Abbotsford is in an all Canadian division, it's not like they're completely isolated from the Pacific Division teams, because guess what? They already go out. Abbotsford played Toronto and Laval in Ontario and Quebec. So it's like, it baffled me when people were like, but to knit that all up and to put a nice little bow on it, the Springfield fans were incensed that I moved their team to the North Division out of the Atlantic Division. And they brought up a good point. They said, Hartford is only 40 miles away and you put them in a different division. It's like, I'm not putting up the Berlin Wall, for crying out loud. Like, they're going to be able to still play each other if I divided it this way. But
look at what Cleveland does. Cleveland's in the North Division and played like half and half a schedule. So it would be fine. Anyway, that's enough about that.
Yes.
Let's look forward a little bit for Springfield for next season. Cece, would you like the under contract guys or the free agent guys?
I'm going to go with the under contract guys.
Okay, this is your choice. Hit me with who is under contract for the St. Louis Blues organization that was a part of Springfield this year.
Okay, we're going to go first with Cal Rosen, aforementioned Cal Rosen. Nathan Walker, Aussie. Oi. There we go. Alexei Torpchenko, Kian Washkruk, Nikita Alexandrov, Matthias Leferriere, Matthew Pekka, Luke Wachowski, Matthew Kessel, Tyler Tucker, Brady Lyle, Steven Santini, Colton Ellis, Joel Hofer, and Tommy Cross. His re-signing was announced on June 26th. So him coming back is a fairly recent development, but the captain is returning for next year in Springfield. Sean, you've got the free agents. quite a number of big names on here.
Yeah, unrestricted free agents include Sam Annis, Dakota Joshua, Mackenzie McEachern, James Neal, Charlie Lindgren, Griffin Luce, Josh Wesley, and Drew Callan. Restricted free agents include Scott Perunovich, Will Bitten, Tanner Kaspick, Clem Costin, Hugh McGing, and Nathan Todd. Let's start with the unrestricted guys who can just walk away if they feel like it, or if they get a better offer. I imagine they don't just feel like it. I don't think there's any way James Neal comes back. Like, not to Springfield, but like, he's, I think, either going to retire or like take a 1-year deal in, some, team that's just doing whatever. Like, maybe not the Coyotes, like bad, but like a middling team. Like, I could see him taking a 1-year, like $1.5 million deal to go play in Buffalo, or for like, who's like not a contender, like, or like Detroit, some team that's not going to be terrible next year, but like isn't expected to go places. I could see James Neal going someplace like that. I think Sam Annis could walk too. I think he's still pushing for an NHL job. I think he's someone who would take, a Coyotes gig or a Canadiens gig if they offered him basically anything close to a league minimum contract. But it was a one-way and he was going to be on the NHL club. I think he takes that. I think Dakota Joshua comes back. I think Mackenzie McEachern comes back. I'd be shocked if Charlie Lindgren left. Like, this is a career year for him by every standard. I have to imagine he wants to, see if he can run it back. The others, they might come back, they might not, but they were not really impact players. So I think, coin flips. The RFAs, I think I could see a world in which they don't QO Nathan Todd. But that's about it. I think everyone else they're at least giving a QO to. Maybe not Tanner Kaspick, but like obviously Perunovic is going to get bridged.
Oh yeah.
Like he'll sign like a probably 2 or 3 year, like $1.5–2 million kind of a year deal. Benton will get like a 2-year 2-way. Same with Costin. Well, Costin will probably cost a little more. No pun intended. Humaging, same thing, like 2-year 2-way kind of deal. I could see Nathan Todd maybe walking. I could see him not getting a QO. It wouldn't shock me if he did, but I think there's a chance he doesn't get qualified.
I think Nathan Todd, I mean, good for him. Like showing out in Manitoba the way that he did, and then signing the deal that he did with the St. Louis Blues organization. I mean, good for him. I think,
get that bag.
Exactly, get that bag. But I think he signs an AHL deal with another team. Like I don't think another team qualifies him with an NHL 2-way deal. I think he signs an AHL deal with another team that's not named the Springfield Thunderbirds.
I could see someone else offering him like one of those 2 years where like the second year is a 1-way on League Min or something like that. I could see that, but that's about it. Like I like Nathan Todd, but I don't love Nathan Todd. Like I think he's good. He has talent. He belongs in the AHL, but I think he very much belongs in the AHL. Like I don't think if he gets NHL, duty, it's going to be spots and cups of coffee. It's not going to be a long-term thing for him. And it's no knock on him. Like making the NHL is hard. It's the hardest league in the world to make. Like,
right.
I don't know. Anyway, closing thoughts on Springfield for the year.
Definitely not a favorite, or definitely not a noted favorite of ours in the off season. I feel like they were, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like they were kind of on the cusp of either they make the playoffs or they don't. I mean, again, it's been a hell of a long year, so it's hard to recall that off the top of my head. But I mean, with Annis going over there from the Iowa Wild, and from that standpoint, like I'm like, okay, maybe Springfield, can make a dent. Maybe they'll make the postseason, get to the first round, get to the second round. But I don't think, and forgive me for speaking on your behalf as well, but I don't think either of us saw them making the Calder Cup Finals.
No.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I thought the North Division would win the East. I thought whoever won the North would walk to the Calder Cup Finals.
Right.
And
right.
I still like. I agree with how I got to that conclusion. I still think Springfield was rightfully the underdog in that series, but Laval played like crap for the Game 6 and Game 7, so Springfield earned their way there. And we did not have them. We had them as a 53% points percentage in the preseason, 53.95. But we also had the Atlantic as being a lot better than it turned out to be. So, and a lot of that was Hershey got beat up, Charlotte got beat up, Lehigh Valley had a lot of call-ups. So, and Bridgeport's coached by Brent Thompson. So we had a lot of reasons why our Atlantic predictions didn't go the way we can, because we're not psychic, but we thought Springfield was going to be good. They overperformed what we thought, but
correct. But so did Chicago.
Chicago did it better than anyone. But I think that I don't want to say I was high on Springfield the entire season, because that's not true. But I feel like I was in the neighborhood of where they were. And I know, their fans loved that team and were diehard fans, and good for them for that. And they gave me a lot of grief for, I feel like, not matching their expectations of the team or their takes on the team. And, that's my job, to be, the outside voice. But I really enjoyed Springfield this year. I realized we did not get to cover them as much during the regular season. Their schedule just, for whatever reason, never seemed to be a good match for what we were trying to pull that week. And that's unfortunate. One of the things that we are going to try and fix in the offseason is getting a more balanced rotation going. We seem to get that down pretty well at the 3/4 mark of the season, and that was a little too late. But I did enjoy, for the most part, over the course of the season, watching them play. I enjoyed the fans that we got to interact with, even if sometimes they were yelling angry things at us. It's labor of love.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the passion that group has. And especially seeing them, finally get to see some success on the ice after years of not really having that, I think is a very good thing for them, and helps establish their fan base further. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next year. And like I said, I really thought I would not like this jersey, and then when I thought it out, I was like, actually, this is kind of sharp looking. It has grown on me, and I'm not normally one who likes the jerseys with the piping and stuff like that, but it does seem to fit. So,
yeah, I'm just looking at the piping there. It reminds me of those Reebok jerseys that the NHL had for a while, and to put piping on every jersey, ugh.
Oh, the Avs ones are awful.
That's exactly the one I was thinking of course. It's like,
but it's funny now. I remember when Adidas took over Nashville and they got rid of all the piping, and I'm like, this looks wrong now. Like, I don't know if that was your opinion, but it was mine.
It felt like an overcorrection.
Right.
Very much.
Anyway. All right. I think that's it for Springfield. May they rest in peace.
May they rest in peace. Good run, buds. Good run.
We're going to take a break here, and after the break, we will get to the Calder Cup champion side of the Calder Cup Finals, the Chicago Wolves. If you're just here for Springfield's Postmortem, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Although I will spoil the end for you right now. We're going to take some time off now as the season is over and both of us are exhausted.
Correct.
So timely fashion in the future is a theoretical concept. Time is made up. So anyway, you should also still check us out on social media. Links to all of that and more can be found on our Linktree page at linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. We're going to pay some bills, run some ads. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Last but certainly not least, it's time to cover the champs. We decided to look within and without the organization to recap the Chicago Wolves' performance in the Calder Cup Finals. So let's start with within. He's called games for the short-lived ECHL club, the Texas Wildcatters, before jumping to the Iowa Stars for 2 seasons and then over to the Houston Aeros for 1 year between 2005 and 2008. Man, may both of those franchises RIP. He's been the voice of the Wolves since 2008, however, so please welcome on Jason Shaver. Jason, welcome to the Calder Farmstead. I thought Sean was hitting the button. Sorry, Jason.
Yeah. No, it's great to be back on with you, and it's great to be working for a team that it's still playing and winning championships. So I'm grateful.
There you go. Hey, the Wildcatters put together 2 of the best ECHL seasons toward the end of their tenure. But
can I share something with you?
Sure.
I was for their first 2 seasons, and they were 2 of the worst. The first year, they won 22 games, and I was like, I cannot wait for next year. There's no way it could possibly be worse. They won 18 games.
No,
of 72.
Yeah, and then they go and post, a 52-8 season in their last year of existence. Yeah, just completely random. But anyway,
and
Sean.
now on the other side, not technically affiliated with the Chicago Wolves, but she's given us solid coverage and analysis of the Wolves throughout the 2022 postseason here on the Calder Farmstead. She's practically a co-host at this point. Thank you for once again waiving your appearance fee. From Canes Country, covering the Chicago Wolves, Sarah Avampato. Well, let's dive right in here, and let's do what we normally do on the show. We'll talk about, the observations we had from why Chicago was able to hoist the Calder Cup, and then we'll kick it over to you guys. We'll go Jason first, then Sarah. Sarah, you've been here already. Give, the new guy a shot. So for us, we said in the preview that Chicago needed to do 3 things to win the Calder Cup here. They needed to send the identity line into witness protection. They needed to match the physicality of Springfield, and they needed to continue to find success on the power play. The identity line was McEachern, Joshua, and Bitton. Game 1, they produced pretty well, 3 combined points. Games 2 through 5, they had 5 combined points. That isn't necessarily witness protection status per se, but it's definitely the quietest any team this postseason made the identity line for Springfield. I'd call that a qualified checking of the box. Number 2 was matching the physicality of Springfield. Well, they certainly had the penalty minutes to say that they were physical. That's for certain. I think it's debatable if the Wolves matched the level of physicality from Springfield, but they certainly didn't get pushed around. In the ballpark of the physicality level, I thought. And they didn't let Springfield physically dominate board and net front battles like Laval did, which was their downfall. If anything, I'd say they won more of those key battles in tough areas in the defensive zone, which was a huge boost to their defensive efforts. Third thing was continue to find success on the power play. I think that's an unqualified quadruple check of the box. They went 9 for 20 in the series. No shorthanded goals against, so net power play and raw power play are the same thing. Good old 45% on the power play for the Wolves. Yeah, that's all the boxes I needed to check for the power play finding success there. Our X factor in the series was goaltending. The Thunderbirds goaltenders combined to put up an .889 save percentage in the series. The Wolves put up a .945 combined between Kochekov and Alex Lyon. So, yeah, that's the X factor for Chicago as well. They checked all the boxes that we were looking for. Power play, obviously, a much bigger one than I think we would have thought going into the series, but still. Jason, you first. What did you see from the Wolves that you think was the things that put them over the top here?
Well, if you want me to go through your 3 checklists, because I think it's on point, the identity line was by far Springfield's best line. I think what hurt them maybe a little bit because they were their best line when the series shifted to Springfield, they were then matching them up either against the Drury line or the Nason and Podorowski line, and those lines just were not shut down by anyone all season long. So I think that's why their point production shifted a little bit as the series moved on, is because, quite frankly, those 2 lines for the Wolves did not let the opponent have any offensive zone time. Ryan Rosowski likes to say, and the team's motto was, if you want to take the game to the woodshed, we will go to the woodshed. That's not our preferred method of playing. We are not the toughest team, but we will arrive in 5. So I think the fact that they played in division with Rockford, the Manitoba Moose, and Milwaukee Admirals prepped them for whatever physical activity they were going to see from both Stockton and Springfield. Again, that's not how they wanted to play the game. Their preferred 5-on-5 and let's go up and down the ice sheet, but they were able to do that. And then Bob Nardella in that power play for the Wolves was unbelievable most of the postseason, especially in the finals. They scored in every single game. And up until that last game, they had multiple power play goals. So, I mean, those were the 3 keys. They didn't need to really get into the goaltending. I thought Springfield's goaltenders made some excellent saves, but at the most point when they were making those saves, the Wolves had already gotten to them. And Kochekov and Lyon, while they had to make some good saves, the good saves that they did make were awfully easy looking to me. And I defer now to Sarah for her unbiased opinion.
No, I mean, I think that's all right on. And, you know, I think one of the things we talked about on the show before was no team wants to get into a track meet against the Wolves. And that is what we saw a lot of particularly in this series. You know, there wasn't, you look at game 1 against Stockton and it was very clear both teams were kind of feeling each other out, not really sure. There was none of that in this series against Springfield. It was off to the races from game 1, and where Springfield struggled was whenever they had to start chasing the Wolves back and forth 200 feet the whole time. And, you know, I think that was a really big key to their success of, yeah, the Wolves matched or exceeded their physicality level, but at the end of the day, Springfield couldn't hang with them in terms of just the skating, that aspect of the game. And I think that really tilted it in their favor. You know, at the little rally they did the other day, a lot of the players kind of mentioned it a little tongue in cheek, but they did all talk about special teams, and the Wolves had the chance to show what they can do on the penalty kill a lot. And that penalty kill was fantastic. And it wasn't just, you know, it's not just your kind of grinder bottom 6 guys who are out there. It's, you know, future NHL stars like Jack Drury who are out there blocking shots, getting in lanes, like everyone committed. Like this team, it always feels like such a cliche as a writer because you hear it from everyone you talk, like the whole like play to our identity, and you know it's a cliche, but this team embodied it. Like talking to those guys, talking to Ryan Rosowski, like the identity of being hard to play against, of being you know from puck drop to the end of the game, just being committed to playing the full game. You know, they had it. This was a team that, like, it makes me want to like not think of it as a cliche because for them they lived it. That was their style of play. And I think that just that full team commitment from whether you're a superstar or you're a guy playing, 5 minutes a night or something, everyone was committed to knowing what their role was and just giving it their all. And when there were times when there were passengers, first off, Ryan Warsofsky calls it out, whenever he is not happy with someone on his team, and then there's a lineup change, and guys get the message real quick and they adapt. So just great performances from top to bottom on that team.
Absolutely. And we talked about the Springfield power play when we did our Springfield postmortem. I actually changed jerseys for that one because it felt kind of weird to be, rocking the Wolves jersey, talking about Springfield's season. That felt a little cruel. But I will say I thought that a lot of Springfield's power play versus Chicago's penalty kill matchup came a lot on the Chicago side to their incredible discipline. Like, it was a lot of not overcommitting, not getting caught chasing, staying in their lanes, identifying what comes next. And I will at least dog Springfield here a little bit in this portion where I feel like Springfield did very little on the power play to try and correct for that. They didn't make a lot of adjustments, and the ones that they did, I don't feel like worked very well. And I think that's something they should be looking at in the offseason, is what they should have been doing more of. And we talked about that a little bit already, but it was surprising to me. But at the same point, the Wolves, I think the biggest thing of their penalty kill that I wasn't expecting to see from them is their ability to stand at the blue line with poise and force Springfield to dump it in so often. They really had a solid gap control throughout their defense on the blue line, which I don't want to say was surprising to me, but I wasn't expecting them to be able to just hold the line that well, especially with guys like Will Bitton out there who can fly. That must have been, some terrifying moments standing there being like, I know this dude, if I don't pivot at the right time, is going to put me on SportsCenter in a bad way. Mm-hmm. So it's like, that's a lot of credits to, their blue line, their gap control, and the poise they had in those moments, because that was a huge part of Springfield's power play not being able to get anything done, is they had to keep dumping the puck in because they were being held up right at the blue line by Chicago's penalty kill. And that's a big credit to them because, as I have said many times throughout the course of this season, watching, all of the teams play, one of the biggest things that I think is underrated about penalty kills is their ability to force dump-ins and break up entry plays. And Chicago was amazing that on the penalty kill in this series. And they did so by not, reinventing the wheel or doing some new tactical shiny thing that was hard. They played a pretty basic 1-3-4 check, and they stood up hard on the blue line with good poise. And that's not something you see as often in the AHL these days. So credit to them and the coaching staff once again.
Yeah, Cody Ward did such a good job on the pre-scout, and I think it helps. Obviously, Springfield, the first two rounds, jetted through because of their power play. They had so much success. But then Laval had those 6 straight games, and Cody Ward's breaking down all that video, and the Wolves actually adjusted both against Stockton and Springfield of what they do on the penalty kill to try and take away some things. And I can't talk to the game planning of Springfield. I know that Daniel Kachuk, who was an assistant with the Wolves, an assistant there, runs an outstanding power play, but the Wolves were well prepared for that. And Cody Ward, a big part of it, and then Patrick Dwyer, who did it. And I know within games, you would see sometimes during the timeouts, the promotional timeouts that they're getting, they would change the look that they were giving them on the penalty kill and the pressure points. And I think that threw Springfield for a loop.
For sure. There were definitely moments where it was hard to kind of get a read on them when I was watching the film over again before we recorded today, of like that they would at certain times be full court press on the penalty kill, and then other times they would sit back more. And you'll see that with, pressure cues and stuff like that. Typically it's if you see a guy on the boards turn his back to you, that's the pressure cue, go get him. Yeah. Or if you see him, bobbling the puck a little bit, that's a pressure cue, go get him. But Chicago seemed to keep that up even when Springfield occasionally had full possession of the puck. And that's something I love to see. I'm a big believer in on the penalty kill. It should be, press. I'm more than willing to die by that sword. But it seemed like they found a very good balance of not just activating when they needed to, but also finding moments in which Springfield had control of the puck and they were pressing them anyway. and it worked out really well. I liked a lot of the adjustments they made on the penalty kill, and not a lot of the ones that that Daniel Tkachuk made on the power play for Springfield. But we covered that a little bit in the Springfield side, so I think that's, there's no need to bury a man more than he's probably already feeling himself.
Yeah. It was just crazy watching it too. You're used to fans saying shoot on the power play. They were actually chanting, "We want shots." I've never heard that before. And literally just the way the Wolves were killing, the shots weren't there. Even if you had the puck, you're looking at a guy, there was nowhere to shoot.
Yeah, it was shin pads or boards. That's where you were going with
Yeah, such a good point.
Yeah. All right. We have two other aspects of this series that are maybe a little bit different than X's and O's. CC, tee us up here.
Yeah. Sarah talking about, Coach Warsofsky, making, proclaiming things, making changes. Well, he definitely proclaimed something. And quote, "As a group, we need to keep our emotions in check, myself included." That's what he said when asked about the team's response in the game. But man, I'm at a loss for words because I'm in the locker room preaching, stay disciplined, stay out of the nonsense. And our guys are doing a pretty damn good job of that. And we're up 5-0. And I want you guys to watch it. You guys tell me what you see to make us on a 5-on-3. Warsofsky passionately defending his players all season long when he's felt they weren't being judged fairly. And the aftermath of Monday night's game showed that attitude once again, coming to the surface. Quote, "Our guys are in there giving everything they have to stay emotionally engaged, to stay calm, to do what they do, to compete. I'm shocked because it's disappointing that we don't get officiating in this type of game better than that. It's that simple." Sean, I'm kicking it to you. Why did he get fined for these comments? Of course.
Well,
you should. Yeah.
You're going to, in my mind, there are three kind of reasons why Warsofsky makes that statement in the first place. Number one, he knows he's getting fined probably 10 seconds after he said it, even if, not before he said it. And it's either, he's mad in the moment, and just kind of says what is on his mind, which I think there's a fair case for that here, which, happens to the best of us. The second one is the idea that he's going to eat the fine and basically doing it as kind of, shaking the cage of the league a little bit, where, maybe they wouldn't be as quick to reprimand referees for what was absolutely not a well officiated game. And I am not someone who blames but yeah, this was not good. Or the other of he didn't think he would get fined, which I don't think it's that one at all. And I was shocked at how many people were shocked that he got fined. There isn't a sports league in North America where you can publicly criticize officiating and not get fined. Bruce Cassidy did it in last year's NHL playoffs. Fined. John Hines did it in this year's NHL playoffs. Fined. Joel Embiid and Memphis Grizzlies coach Taylor Jenkins did it in the NBA playoffs this season. Fined. Cleveland Cavaliers coach JB Bickerstaff did it in April. Fined. Back in 2018, Mike Tomlin called the officiating in a Steelers game a joke. The NFL jokingly laughed and gave him a $25,000 fine. Was Warsofsky wrong in doing this or inaccurate in what he said? Nope. That call on Podorowski that sent them on the 5-3 was absolutely insane. But if you denigrate the officiating in any sport, you're going to get fined in the minimum. And that's the way it should be. And I will expand on that a little bit. You cannot denigrate the officiating. You cannot undermine the authority of the, in this case, judiciary branch of hockey. You can't do it in society. If you get a speeding ticket and you go and fight it in court, and the judge is like, "No, you got to pay that speeding ticket. You did the speeding." You can't just be like, "Well, I'm not accountable to this kangaroo court," and storm out. That's contempt of court. You will get a night in jail for that. And that's because the respect that you have to show, that authority is required because people's faith in their, authority in that institution is necessary for it to function. The same is true with officiating in hockey. The fans can yell all they want about how bad the officials are. That's not a problem. But the players and the coaches need to show that deference because questioning their authority or their ability to administer justice in this case undermines people's faith in that ability. And you can't have that as a league. We can't have it as a society when you're standing in court. Like, that's why it's the way it is. And yeah, he was going to get fined. I think he had a good reason to go for it if it was to, you know, try and shake the cage a little bit and take the fine as necessary. But like, that's the way it's supposed to be. People need to have faith that these, you know, things that judge us do so appropriately, whether it's in hockey or in society or wherever in life. That's the way it's got to be. And I think it's for the best.
I mean, I'm going to defer to Sarah because I read that quote that Sarah transcribed in CC's calm voice, but Ryan admitted that it wasn't quite the same. Sarah, you were there.
Yeah, having talked with Coach Warsofsky, you know, this season, and then, you know, last season over Zoom, I feel like it was so much different to try to build a relationship, you know, with him and get to know him, you know, via, you know, my computer, but, you know, just getting to see him every game this season. He absolutely knew what he was doing. He knew, I mean, you look around the room, you know who's in the room, including the head of PR for the AHL. It's on videotape. There's no way, even if I didn't tweet out his quote, like, there's no way it wouldn't get out there. As soon as he said the word joke, I was like, oh, buddy, like you probably could have slid past with just a like stern phone call, and then you said the word joke. So enjoy the fine. No, I mean, he's very vehement, like not angry. He's not like, you know, getting up there and shouting at you or something, but you could, his body language, his tone of voice is very strong. You at the end, you know, everyone's asking questions and they get to me and they're like, oh, Sarah, do you have any questions? I'm like, nope, I'm good. I'm good. I don't have anything because I just got everything I needed. I don't need to make him, he said his piece. I'm not going to dig in. It's fine. But it was very clear that he was, you know, very passionately defending his players. And, you know, it's one of those things where like two things can be true at the same time of, you know, if you don't get to say stuff like that. And if you do say stuff like that, you have to be understanding and accepting the consequences. But B, the league does need to have a conversation about the quality of officiating, particularly in your conference finals, your Calder Cup finals. You know, one of the things that Warsofsky said in that kind of little rant was, you know, this is these guys' life. You know, these players give up so much to be here playing this game. They miss out on things with their kids. They miss out on things with their families. They train all summer. They do all the right things. And then to get to the highest level in your league and to feel like things are, you know, not being officiated fairly, you know, he has a point in there. You know, it's bad enough when you're like playing a beer league game and you're like, come on, man, was that a hook? You know, but these are professionals. Yeah, exactly. Like, I have absolutely done the oops, I tripped the guy. And I'm like, that wasn't a penalty. Like, of course it was. Totally was a penalty. But yeah, I mean, I talked with him earlier this week, and I hope to write it up kind of just about his sort of philosophy as a coach. And, you know, he is very, you know, every coach is going to defend their players, but you can tell like it comes from the heart with him. Like he takes it very seriously, his role as someone who is, you know, can be the voice for his players. And he can say the things that, you know, he's going to get a fine, whatever. It runs in the Carolina Hurricanes family. You know, that list of coaches that have been fined. Rod Brindamore, we might as well call it like the Rod Brindamore honorary fine in the NHL. You know, it like father, like son, essentially, in terms of the franchises there. But, you know, he's very passionate about speaking up for his players and giving them a voice when they can't really have one. And, you know, he wasn't wrong when he said that to us of like, look, like, I want you all to go watch that. I'm like, you're right, man. You're right. Like, not arguing with you here.
Yeah, I think his biggest gripe wasn't necessarily all the calls that went against the Wolves in the postseason. It was the calls that did not go to their opposition. The Wolves play a certain style, and that's the beauty of hockey. There's the contrast of styles, and they were playing teams that were playing with a little bit more grit, and that's especially going to be the case if you're the team in the lead. I think the biggest thing that they keep pointing out is the fact that they were plus 65 in power play differential during the regular season, and that number was much higher until the final month of the year, where again teams are fighting for playoff spots and maybe trying a different style of play against the Wolves. In the postseason here, they were on the negative side by a large margin on the power play penalty kill attempts, and I think that is what was irritating the Wolves side of things more than maybe the calls that were going against them. It was the lack of calls that their opponents were taking.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things too is like and this is true more so probably at the NHL level, dealing with, hockey, NHL hockey ops and stuff. But like, you can see that it's not just as cut and dry as I see the penalty, I call the penalty. There is game management to it by officiating. And that's not because that's what they want to do, but that's what they're told to do. And I think and you can see it with if you go to, the graphs that I make of exactly what you talk about, penalty differential, they all go on this neat little line because if you, take more calls, you get more calls. Like that's what game management is evening out the calls pretty close. And that's silly. Call the pen that's one of the things that gets me fired up about officiating. It's like, if you're going to call, this is a roughing penalty, that's fine. But you can't tell me that I'm watching you stare down that exact same call in the third period of a tie game. You're like, oh, suddenly that's not a roughing call. As long as you keep it consistent and call the penalties you see. And I understand how hard it is to be a ref. I actually was a certified ref when I was younger. And I know that it's not an easy job, not only just to do, but also everyone hates you. So it's not an easy job to want to continue to do. And I think that, speaks to a little bit of what happens, but there are definitely moments where I'm watching you watch that dude get cross-checked. And it's like, yeah, telling him hey, enough of that is not if you ever had kids watch them, beating up on their brother or whatever, you can be like, oh, hey, enough of that. No, you need to either grab them or put them in timeout or ground them. But I think Ryan Warsofsky taking the fine there is definitely, accelerating a conversation that would be had between the league and its officials. If, I assume one was going to happen already. Hopefully they all watched the same game we did, but that he has a point. And, one that is very Wolves slanted, but he's their head coach that, kind of goes with the territory. But the officiating this postseason was not great. And I think that that's something the AHL needs to look at going forward.
And they had a lot of supervisors there watching and evaluating each round. So I will say from a league standpoint, they were there with the critical eyes, and I'm sure there were some conversations and some things to work on as well on that side of things. So I do give the league credit on that.
And I think, it's a testament to what he was saying about, I preach to these guys about staying disciplined and not getting into it. I can tell you two players on that team who I'm shocked didn't get into it. And it's Josh Levo and Stefan Nason, who both of those guys throughout the season, you see them yelling at the refs, getting into it with them. I think both of them at least once had been ejected for, unsportsmanlike conduct, essentially for arguing over things. And to the Wolves' credit, despite these soft calls or inconsistent officiating or whatever you want to call it, pretty much everyone kept their cool. At no point did I think that the players were going to be putting themselves in danger of being down even more because they got mad about it. Yes, Stefan Nason, heart on his sleeve. He's that player. You watch him in the game. You see him kind of yelling back at the ref. But they kept on that right side of the line. You get the exasperated hand raised, but whatever. Those players, that message about discipline that he had been trying all season to instill in them, it took at the exact right time because they let the calls happen. They expressed their annoyance about it, but they stayed out of the box without taking additional, unsportsmanlike penalties or anything like that. So, I was very curious to see how that would play out because I saw it happen all season long of a couple specific guys getting a little too amped up about it. And everyone heeded that lesson.
It's like Sarah's reading off of our outline because she's just segging into our next point so well. First, Warsofsky. Next, we've got Alex Lyon, the goaltender. During the series, yes, the Chicago Wolves players keeping their cool, but after the series,
immediately after the series,
I'll put it PG. No Fs were given, or maybe one, maybe two. But Sean, take it away.
As far as I can tell, and I've rewatched the end celebration, from the last 5 seconds to when the camera cuts off from AHL TV, I think 3 times now, trying to see if there was genuinely anything more I could capture. I felt like, the Warren Commission looking at this, which is really ridiculous. As far as I could tell, Lyon flips the camera off during the celebration like twice, maybe 3 times, for a grand total of like 4 seconds of middle fingers on AHL TV across 10 minutes. Some fans on Facebook said he threw ice at Springfield fans, but I have seen literally nothing to substantiate that. So Springfield fans being mad really doesn't shock me. Regardless, I think it's silly, and I'm 100% sure Alex Lyon does not care about a 2-game suspension. Frankly, I'm shocked the league cared. If there's more than what you can see on AHL TV, then sure, maybe a suspension for 2 games is worth what happened. But if he's getting suspended for 2 games for a brief bit of middle fingers on AHL TV, that feels very silly to me. Flipping the bird celebrating a Calder Cup doesn't make him anything more than AHL's Stone Cold Steve Austin. And me and our meme team stand by that.
Yeah, I spoke to Alex after the game in the locker room. I had no idea about the double birds flying in the building, but I think at times this was a frustrating season for Alex, and just the goalie rotation at times, the amount of goaltenders that were used. He was the backbone. He was a great teammate. If you talk to any one of the netminders that came through, he learned a lot from them and shared information with them. But there were times that he was literally walking out of the tunnel to start a game and getting recalled. So he lost a lot of starts. He had a shutout in the finals, did not get the next start. Any goaltender who gets a shutout wants that next game. And that was the round prior, I should say. So I don't know if that had anything to do with that. I just know that Alex is a very, very unique person, Yale educated, but from northern Minnesota. He's got a keen interest in almost everyone that he talks to. He's had that shutout on Game 3 in Stockton. We were talking that morning at the hotel, just he and I in the courtyard, shooting the breeze over a cup of coffee. He is a political science major, and we were talking abortion and gun control and just the craziness that is surrounding that. And then he goes out and pitches a shutout. That's just the type of guy he is. And if he'll talk with anyone, like the trainers. Oh, you're in the medical field. I just read this article. What's your thoughts on this? Joey Keane, you grew up in Ireland. What's your thoughts on the Catholic Church? And just go for he's a curious guy, and he lives up to maybe some of the quirkiness that goaltenders have, but a very genuine person that I think, to a man, everyone in that locker room appreciated. But I do know at times there were some frustrations for him this season.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, at that point, like, that is, the counting down seconds of you, claiming your first professional title, that'll definitely feel like a weight off your shoulders kind of moment. And,
yeah, I think that's an I did it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And a lot of frustration. Also, I'm sure the fans behind him in Springfield were just absolutely the most polite and thankful human beings. Definitely. Like, they would never have said anything mean to him while he was in net. Like, so yeah, I don't, I'm assuming that more happened that the AHL TV cameras didn't catch for a 2-game suspension instead of just undisclosed fine. But at the end of the day, I think it's kind of silly. Unless some way more serious thing happened, which I kind of doubt. Seemed like he was kind of busy, carrying the cup, celebrating. But I imagine that will be one of those things, kind of like a lot of the AHL's discipline, where we will never know for basically reasons.
Yeah, I feel like Alex Lyon is one of, like, it makes me wish that I didn't have the day job and could have devoted more time to, like, getting in depth with the Wolves more than I can, because every time I talk to him, just like the most fascinating guy, like, yeah, I would love to just sit down with him with a cup of coffee and be like, let's talk about dinosaurs. I bet he has a lot of feelings on dinosaurs. But he was one of the players, as the clock was ticking down and it was very clear that the Wolves were going to win, he was the first guy that I thought of. He'd been through the ringer with Philadelphia and up and down between the Flyers and their AHL affiliate. Played the longest game in AHL history, just couldn't ever get over the hump with Lehigh Valley, never really got a huge shot with the Flyers, until they brought on Richard Panik. Like, he was the oldest guy on the team. He was just one of the first guys that I thought of that, I was very happy to see him win, but it's ridiculous. Liz, I feel like this is no secret. Anyone who knows me on Twitter knows that I'm like pretty far left politically and socially and whatever. I get that like people are, a little conservative and want to like decorum, blah, blah, blah. Come on, man. Like, I know, like, yeah, there was the shot that was caught on camera. There was something in the like group photo as well where he, flashed the birds during
That's the one that I don't think is like, I've seen the like Gretzky photo and I call it the Gretzky photo because he literally started this tradition because of course Gretzky did. The like everyone gathers with the championship trophy on the ice. Those are ones. Like I saw the feed from AHL TV.
Yeah.
Like, definitely like people thought like I saw a bunch of people like, oh, and the team photo. No. That one I will that like the screenshots everyone has of doing it are like during just the celebration afterward. It's not a team photo, but
it just seems so like I thought it was going to be a phone call and like a hey buddy. And, I don't think he cares. I mean, in his ideal world, he's not in the AHL again, so who cares,
Yeah, he's got a huge offer to go to Russia, which would be very interesting. I'm surprised that Russian teams are already actively pursuing Americans, so that is going to be very interesting.
I could not tell you how much money he would have to pay me to send me for me to go play in Russia. Like,
it's a lot, but I don't think that number would be for me. That's for sure.
Yeah, everyone I hear talk about their time in Russia as a player, as like an import player, not a Russian themselves, where I imagine the experience is different. Like, no, that would not be for me. But speaking of guys in contracts next season, Cece, we're going to take this time now to look a little bit ahead of who's under contract, who's a UFA, and who's an RFA in the Carolina Hurricanes organization as it relates to the Wolves. Cece, would you like the under contract guys or the free agent guys? Because I can see the names here, and well,
hey, I can pronounce names good sometimes. Come on, Sean.
I will say, pick your own poison.
I will say, if I played in net for the Lehigh Valley Phantoms for a handful of seasons like Alex Lyon did, I would want to let off some steam too if I got a Calder Cup victory. I'm just saying. Ooh. I am just saying. Apologies to Lehigh Valley Phantoms fans, but they've been through it the past few years. Just saying.
I at least will say one of my favorite restaurants on earth is in Allentown.
And it's a Billy Joel song, so you can't go wrong there. Well, I digress.
Anyway, under contract guys, free agent guys, Cece, what would you like to take?
Thank you for keeping me on task, Sean. I'll go under contract.
So,
yeah, it's first. Under contract, Jack Drury, technically Dominic Bach. They have their rights, or his rights, but he's currently on loan in the DEL. Ryan Suzuki, Noel Gunler, Jameson Reese, Vasily Ponomarev, Kevin Fitzgerald. So, what's that?
I said very close. Good job on the Ponomarev.
Oh, Ponomarev. Okay. See, I'd heard that. Thank you.
That's why we've got Jason on the show today.
That's exactly. To keep my pronunciations in check, because as Sean knows, I'm hit or miss sometimes.
So am I. I'm a play-by-play guy. That's crazy.
It's crazy. It is crazy. Itu Makaniemi, Pyotr Kochekov, and Jalen Chatfield. Yeah, that was a little bumpy, but we got through it.
You picked that list. That was I gave you the option.
You know what? They're both terrible, and I'm awful with the Russian names. So, Jason.
So am I. And Kochekov has a laundry list of pronunciations, depending if you're watching TNT, ESPN, the Hurricanes feed, the Wolves feed. All I can do is I have him on my phone saying Kochekov. So that's what I've gone with. But there's a million different ways to say that name. And a special shout out to Springfield, the easiest roster to get pronunciations that I've ever had for a team that you hadn't seen all season long.
Kudos, all right. Ryan.
On the free agent side, we have Sam Miletic, Stefan Nason, Andrew Podorowski, Spencer Smallman, CJ Smith, Josh Jacobs, Alex Lyon, Chris Bigras, David Gust, Ivan Lodnia, and Kyle Marino. On the restricted free agent side, somehow David Cotton is an RFA. That's surprising to me. Stelio Mateos, Joey Keane, Max Lejoie, Tarmo Reunanen, who also apparently just signed with a Swiss league or Liga like today. Jesper Sellgren, Jack LaFontaine, and Beck Warm. Definitely not returning is Richard Panik, who was loaned from the New York Islanders this year and has a one-way contract next year.
Special shout out to Richard Panik, too. This is a guy that was injured, traded to Chicago. The Wolves owner, Don Levin, knew he had a good team, spent the extra money to bring him in. He came off of injury and then scored in 4 straight finals games, going back to his last Calder Cup run, 9 straight finals games. And this is a guy that for 3.5 months had his 3 daughters and wife back in Slovakia. And he got drug into the fight and was the difference maker for the Wolves in the finals. You don't win a championship without that addition.
Wow.
For sure. All right. Number one thing I will say, Dominic Bach's not coming back. No way. I will put money down right now. Dominic Bach never sets foot in North America as part of the Hurricanes again. Like, they sent him away. But from the UFA side, anyone stick out to anyone here of who is definitely coming back and maybe someone who is definitely not coming back? CC?
I'll let Sarah handle this because
Jason's the insider here. He probably knows more than he's letting on.
I mean, I think that, especially looking at the UFA list of, you have your big veterans, Nason and Levo, Podorowski. Those guys deserve shots somewhere else. I know that they've all, Levo and Nason particularly have had NHL stints before, never really seemed to stick. But, I would look at those guys if I'm running an NHL team and say, take a chance on. The worst thing that happens is they don't make it on your NHL team, and now you have a superstar to help lead your young team in the AHL. That core leadership group I know was so key for the Wolves in this run. I'm going to be curious to see what happens with Andrew Podorowski. I know he's bounced around a lot. Like, I have just one of those, not based on any insider information whatsoever, but just like the gut feeling of it wouldn't surprise me if he came back. I think that he has a good thing here. He has, clearly the familiarity with Ryan Wasowski from their time together in Charlotte too. But I think of those UFA guys, they're going to get the chance to chase their dreams or the money or whatever they want with some other team. As sad as it would be to see them go because they were such a core part of this team, they all deserve that chance. I think, looking at the UFAs, I mean, the one that stuck out to me too was, David Gust, I think you mentioned, who has been such a unheralded, I brought him up on the show here before. He was key in this series too. If I'm the Wolves, I want to bring him back. If I'm not the Wolves, if I'm some other team, I want him because he can be a solid, depth presence on my AHL team and, can play with anybody. So there's a lot of interesting names there. And, some guys who I think we probably will never see again because they go to the NHL, which is great for them.
I forgot to put Josh Levo on the unrestricted free agent list. So that's my mistake. I compiled that list, but yeah, he is an unrestricted. Don't you shake your head at me, Sean. Come on.
I think for me, the least likely guy to come back is Sam Miletic. I feel like so many guys that they signed in free agency or brought in this season for Chicago had career years or really blossomed. And I feel like Sam Miletic was the opposite of that. I know he probably battled through a little bit of injury there too, but I also think that some of the role that he was given was not what I was expecting at the onset of the season. And yeah, obviously that shifts with chemistry and that kind of thing. But I could see him wanting to see if the grass is greener on the other side after this year. It wouldn't shock me, but a lot of this is throwing darts. I would be really surprised to see Josh Jacobs leave. I think he sticks around. If I'm Andrew Podorowski, unless an NHL team comes to me with a one-way deal, I'm just looking at Stefan Nason and be like, so where are we going, buddy?
Yeah.
I think this is one of the few weird NHL off seasons too, where there are teams already next season we know are going to be bad, and they're going to need to fill roster spots. And you could see, and we've said this probably 20 times already in these postmortems, you could see the Arizona Coyotes being like, hey, how would you like to come, lose 6-2 every night, but do so for a $700,000 contract, Andrew Podorowski? Does he say no to that? I don't think I have the heart to. Arizona's not Russia, so But like a lot of the other guys, I think probably come back. I could see like Spencer Smallman coming back. Alex Lyon, I have no idea. I could see that him either coming back or, like I feel like it's an even split chance. If he goes somewhere else, he comes back to Chicago, he goes to Europe. Like even split anywhere. On the RFA side, I think everyone's getting qualified here. Tarmo Reuninen's the interesting one. I was surprised, and I asked Sarah a couple times. I'm not sure if on the show, but in private messages about like, why is Tarmo not getting into the lineup? It was surprising to me because while he's not a world beater, he's certainly a very capable defenseman, and I would have thought that he would have been, after they made trades to acquire him, like that they'd be wanting to put him at least in the mix. And he also broke the glass in practice. Like nothing says play me like my shot broke the glass, coach.
If you want, I can chime in there on that. So Jalen Chatfield was up in the NHL. Wolves had a couple of defensemen out with injury, and they went out and got Chris Begraw and Tarmo when they desperately needed them. One of the reasons the Wolves finished first overall was because of those two acquisitions. And I will credit this, and I've never seen this happen before, but going into game one, the Wolves had 9 defensemen, and you throw in Griffin Mendel, who signed out of college, who's a big defenseman that the Wolves locked up for next year too. And all 3 of those guys were excellent, but Ryan Rosofsky went with the original 6 defensemen that had been here all season long. And here's the crazy thing. While they were banged up, none of them were banged up enough outside of Kevin Fitzgerald for one game that they couldn't play. When have you seen a team win a championship and use 6 defensemen? They wanted to get Chris in there and Tarmo in there. Mendel got 1 game in the finals replacing an injured Kevin Fitzgerald, and that was it. They just they somehow managed to get through an entire playoff run using 6 defensemen, but they were very comfortable using the 9 that they had.
All right. That is fair. I was just, I would have thought at least at one point you would have, just cycled him in just to, kind of.
Yeah, the debate was game one, and that was the chance. And they said, we're going to go with the original 6. And then, they only lost 1 game through 2 rounds. And then you're 3-0 on Stockton. You're not making any changes, right? Like you've kind of solidified it. So
fair.
But and to a man, those guys were unbelievable. And you should see the respect in the locker room that Begraw and Tarmo and Mendel had from those players and how bad kind of they felt that they didn't get into a game.
All right, then. I appreciate the insight, Jason. That is one of the many reasons in which we brought you on, but also trying not to get you in trouble for revealing.
Yeah. I would not like to comment on the unrestricted free agents, but happy to share some insight.
Oh, I'm sure in your head you're like, joke's on you. 4 of them are already signed.
We're going to shake you down, Jason. We're going to get you off camera here and be like, who are they? Who are they?
It's CJ Smith. All right. Normally at this point, we also do the was this season a success or failure? But I think we can skip over that one here. I think there's a big shining thing in your office that says it was a success. But last closing thoughts on the season for Chicago as a whole. Sarah, I'll let you go first here as the veteran reporter on the scene.
I think that it was a very special season. And I know everyone says that after a team wins, but it was very clear just from the beginning of the season to the last day, how much this group gelled, how much every man bought in. We just talked about those 3 defensemen who, never got into games. Griffin Mendel got in 1 game in the playoffs. And Ivan Ladnia, for example, up on forward, every time he got into the lineup, he made a difference. And we talked to him after one of the games about, I had an honest conversation with Ryan Rosofsky about the fact that I'm not going to be in every game, but I'm committed to making a difference the times that I'm on the ice. And you could just tell that every guy in that room bought in, even just, hanging around afterwards, waiting to do interviews. It just seems like everyone gets along. Like it was a very special team. And that's the kind of team that wins championships. And just a ton of hard work. And, as someone who Ryan Rosofsky has to answer all of my dumb little questions after every game, just watching him as a coach and seeing the passion he has for his players. And he's going to make some NHL franchise very happy someday as a head coach, and he's going to get to answer a lot tougher questions than the ones that I ask. But just seeing him handle this season, I have a ton of respect for him as a coach.
Absolutely. All right. Closing thoughts, Jason, on the season for Chicago.
Well, it's a franchise that's been known for winning. This was their 5th championship in 5 years. They went into a 13-year drought. And during that time, they had 8 division winners. They just had bad luck at times with injuries or better teams that they faced in the playoffs. But Billy Gardner, who's been here for 20 years, I do the games with. Don Levin, the owner of the team that's owned it for the entire time. Wendell Young, the general manager who won cups as a player, won cups as an assistant coach. All 3 of those would say that this is the best team that the Wolves have ever had. So I defer to them. Billy called it the dream team last night at the team celebration, and it really was. On Black Friday, they came out of the Thanksgiving feast that Don Levin always hosts every year at a local hotel, went to Grand Rapids. They were down 3-0 after 2 periods of play. Billy and I were talking to Randy Cleves, like, maybe this team isn't as good as we thought. They scored 5 goals in the 3rd period and never looked back. They never stopped winning from that. They rattled off 12 straight wins and were in first place in the Central the rest of the way. Eventually, they caught up to Stockton on the winning percentages and prevailed over Stockton in a great series, and then took on, the best from the East and won that in rather convincing fashion. I think the numbers that stand out to me is just their dominance in the playoffs and the fact that they trailed so little. And if you the finals against Springfield, they trailed for a total of 8 minutes and 35 seconds. They only trailed once in that, and I shuffled my other notes away. The longest that they ever trailed was, ironically, the Milwaukee series. They trailed for 35 minutes in that series. They only trailed for 20 minutes against Stockton and 12 minutes against Rockford. They certainly were a great team and more than worthy of the Calder Cup.
Wow. Those are some mind-blowing stats right there.
I mean, they barely trailed for an entire game all playoff long. If you add up those minutes, it's barely 60 minutes.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. For me, real quick, well, we were wrong about Chicago in the preseason. We thought they'd be kind of good. You have a nice little award in your office, Jason, for that somewhere. But honestly, I agree that this was one of the best AHL teams I've seen. Like they were top to bottom, just loaded the entire time. And I remember when the playoffs started and people were like, oh yeah, it's Springfield or Charlotte. or Stockton. I'm like, no, it's Chicago. Like and as soon as Carolina got eliminated, I'm like, no, it's definitely Chicago. I'm 100% certain it is Chicago. And it's been a very fun year. Also, they're, I think, the team that helped us make the most memes of anyone. So always a pleasure there. We appreciate that effort. Well won. This was one where it felt like the best team won in the playoffs. And in hockey, that's incredibly rare because it's a sport full of randomness and bad luck. And to see what felt like very clearly the best team win was rewarding. I feel like we don't get that a lot in hockey, although the NHL, I feel like, did a pretty good job this year of having the best team win as well. Yeah. So you don't see that in hockey overall in the professional level that much. So congratulations to Chicago. It was a lot of fun. Thank you for giving us entertaining bits and memes to make. We look forward to, next season, should we make it that far. CC, anything else you would like to add before we send our guests on their way?
My prediction was Wolves in 7, and I thought it was going to come true after that first game when the Wolves went up by 2 goals, and then Springfield immediately responded, potted another goal, took it to overtime, won it in overtime, and I'm like, here we go, going to go to 7 games, and then the Wolves took the next 4. It's like, okay, Wolves in 5, I guess, but I mean, yeah, just the way that they flipped the script after, falling in that first game and just taking the next 4, it's like, yeah, it's just the Podorowski transaction and Alex Lyon, picking up a couple vets in the offseason. I'm thinking to myself, gosh, they're right up there for Calder Cup contenders. Even in the 2021 offseason, I'm like, yeah, this team's going to be good. They're going to be scary good. And Stefan Nason, another, again, Pacific Division acquisition coming over from San Jose, just career resurgence year for him. And it's, it was super fun hockey to watch. And yeah, I mean, especially going back to that Stockton series. I mean, that was, they go up 3-0 and Stockton's clawing and scratching their way back. And then the Wolves would just slam the door in game 6. It's been great AHL hockey. It's been a wonderful season. It's good to get back to some sense of normalcy.
All right. Well, thank you both very much for coming on. I'd say we'll see you very soon, but we will not be back soon. There's going to be like a nice month-long break from this because while we love doing this show, I am exhausted. So thank you guys very much for coming on, giving us your time, and for giving us the insights that you had. We really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. We will see both of you sometime, when it's like 75 degrees out, maybe.
Yeah. Well, thank you to Sean and Cece. Seriously, you don't know how valuable your podcast was for me prepping for Stockton and Springfield and getting your breakdown, the key players. It's a great asset. I love the fact that you cover the American Hockey League, a league that's near and dear to my heart, and you cover it like it's the NHL. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Jason. We always appreciate the kind words. That's what we do it for. Yeah, and make sure you follow Sarah for all the Wolves info. It's so nice to just get someone from outside the organization's perspective on what they saw week in and week out. So Sarah, kudos to you too. And I look forward to more coverage now that you got the stinking Kings off your slate.
Right. Just got to get rid of the day job. And then it's 24/7 Wolves, man.
All right, guys, real quick before you go, where can people find you online in case they don't know where you are already?
So you can find me on Twitter at Right Said Sarah. It's WRITE said Sarah with an H. Canes Country is the SB Nation Carolina Hurricanes blog that I contribute all of my thoughts and weird feelings about the Wolves to. So you can find that on Twitter at Canes Country or at canescountry.com, where I write some words occasionally.
I'm on Twitter at The Shaves. I don't tweet that much anymore. It's a beautiful place when you're just following hockey writers and using it for information. So, and the people that do comment with me have been great to deal with. So you'll get a little bit of Wolves commentary on there, mostly just the facts, so we don't get into any arguments. But feel free to follow me if you'd like at The Shaves.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you and you appreciate your time. We will see you next season.
All right, that will do it for the show. Special thanks once again to Jason Shaver and Sarah Avampato for joining us to talk about the Chicago Wolves. Unfortunately, Ryan Smith on a much-needed vacation for the Springfield Thunderbirds. So did reach out to him, unfortunately unavailable. So enjoy your vacation, Ryan. Hope you're having a good time. And to all those that are watching and or listening, thank you for watching and or listening. The Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can listen to this and several other great hockey, sports, and pro wrestling programs at fullpresscoverage.com. You just click on the podcast drop-down menu in the top right portion of the website. Brrr, that's a big list populating. That's what that sound is. And, of course, enjoy. And if you are enjoying this podcast, thank you with all the good programming on Full Press Coverage and hockey programming in general. You choose to be with us, and we appreciate it. So thanks.
And if you guys are enjoying the Calder Farmstead, please make sure you subscribe so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon, please rate and review the show. Doing so helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve the show. Or if you're watching on YouTube, like the video, comment on what you thought of the episode. Click all the buttons. It actually does help other people find the show. And like I said, your reviews help us improve it. You can also follow the show on social media at Calder Farmstead on Twitter, at The Calder Farmstead on Instagram, and Facebook. Links to all of that and more can be found in our Linktree page, which is linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's AD_DYSFUNCTION. So we can make music for you too. Cece, where can the people find you?
My name is Cece Hockley. You can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at FPC_AHL. You'll find all the latest AHL transactions from that account and news, of course. You can also tune in my personal Twitter account at CC Hawk. That's SEESEEHAWK. Hockey tweets, of course, but also music, films, pop culture. Basically, if it keeps me interested, it's not going to be bullshit for you. Or at least I hope. Check out my writing on the Full Press Coverage Network at fullpresshockey.com. It's the off-season in the AHL, so I'm going to be busy with off-season player trackers, and we're going to get that going hopefully at the beginning of July. But enough about that. Shawnee, where can the people find you?
I'm Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SeanObrien 81. I'm also on Instagram at Sean O'Brien _81. Sean O'Brien 81 on Instagram is a different dude. Hopefully that's a tip off to you when the profiles don't look anything alike. You can find my stats work on Tableau, which has all been updated to the final games of the season. It is now not going to change. It is locked into its forever home. All of it is at bit.ly/data-dump-and-chase, all lowercase, all one word. Cece, this is going to be it for us for a little bit. I think we're going to take, like a month, the whole month of July, and just kind of do nothing. So for all of us here, for the entire month of July, we are going to be MIA, relaxing, recuperating from what has been an incredibly long season. This is a labor of love for us, but it is, in fact, still a very large lift for the two of us. And I think we've earned a little bit of time off. We appreciate all of you for, including us in your AHL fandom or excluding us. We don't know the difference. So all that to be said, Cece, take us home.
That will do it for episode number 107 of the Calder Farmstead, an AHL podcast. For Sean O'Brien, I'm Cece Hockley, and we're going to take a much-needed break. I tell you, our first season covering the AHL, it was a half season. It was a COVID-shortened season. Jumping from that to a full season, that was quite an undertaking. So again, we're going to take the month of July off. We're going to take a break. And in the meantime, as always, keep your stick on the ice. We'll see you in August.